Okay, so Felicia, will you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me and see the presentation?
Mhm.
Okay, terrific. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. As Felicia mentioned, my business is called Rocket Girl Solutions. Felicia, I think you might want to pin me or unpin you in the image. Okay, awesome. So thank you for coming. As Felicia mentioned, my business is called Rocket Girl Solutions. I work with solo professionals and very, very small business owners, and I act as their part-time business manager. So what that means is I help them with all the back-end pieces of their business, whether it's on email newsletters or setting up credit card processing, website updates, things like that. So what we're going to talk about today is email newsletters and why I think they're my secret weapon. I was just thinking about this as I was preparing today, and this is the third, I'm in the process of creating my third successful business, and it always started with an email newsletter, and that's what's kind of crazy. Felicia, do you think you could change the image? I would think it would be better if they can see me. So, the reason that an email newsletter is so great is I'm going to tell you sort of the reasons right here, but you can reach a lot of people at once. Readers will hit reply and connect with me. The writing can be used over and over again. It's a great way to tell people about my work. My clients are better suited for me, and I feel smarter. So I'm going to break all of this down, but that's really what we're going to talk about. So by growing an email newsletter list, when I started each one of my businesses, my list was maybe 200, 300 people. And then it grew to, in some cases, one case, an online retail store I had, it grew to almost 15,000. So when it was Mother's Day and I was selling cute little t-shirts, you know, I was able to really jack up my sales. In the case of Rocket Girl and another business that I'm focusing on, I'm able to really establish myself as a likable expert and communicate with people all at once. The other thing is about the writing being used over and over again. I'm going to go into detail about that, and I think it's going to surprise you how much leverage you have once you have this information. And the reason that the clients are better suited for me is because they know me a little bit, because I'm going to break down my newsletter and the different pieces of it, and you'll see how that happens. And then the last one, I didn't notice that in the beginning, but what I realized was that by having to write and articulate what I do, it made me it made me able to be more articulate. It made me be able to pivot in a conversation and really talk about the value that I could bring to a solution when helping someone. All right, so now I'm gonna break it down. All right, so imagine that the pieces I'm going to show you are sequential. All right, so I use MailChimp, and so this is at the very top of the email newsletter, and each piece is going to build. All right, so here are the key components. So the date, the issue number, and the hello. And you'll notice that it's conversational. I'll often mention something personal like I had a great weekend in the yard, planting the garden or whatever, as a way to connect. My picture so that people can identify with me as a person, and then my written signature. Because again, I think that just adds a little bit of a touch of me, and that's the whole point, is for me to stay in touch with them. Now the next section is an article. The key here is that you really want to write it yourself. You really want to pour some of your secret sauce into it. So here what I'm writing about is why I like fall, and how fall seems to be a place to restart and look at your goals again, because in January it's so far away, and now in the fall everybody's sharpening their pencils and getting ready to go again. So that's the kind of thing that I would write about. All right, hold on. All right, so let me go into a little bit more detail about this. All right, so then there's another section. Let me just hold on one second. I just want to see what's. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry guys. All right, then the next section right under the article is social media sharing. So there's two types of social media. There's social media following, which is when you click on a link and it takes you to my Facebook page or my Twitter or my LinkedIn. Social media share is encouraging other people to share your article with their friends and their contacts. So I always make sure that that's part of right after the article, which is different from social following. All right, now, and see what will happen. The reason that this is me is because I'm sharing I'm connected to my own social media account, but here, whoever is reading it, it would show their profile for whatever social media platform, and then it would be right there, and they would type something like, thought this was great, and send it out to their whole group of followers. The next section of my newsletter is usually some kind of personal insight, and I encourage my clients to do this as well. So it could be things I can't live without, books I'm reading, my favorite thing, anything where you can show a little bit of your personality, and again, get to know the person better and give them a little tidbit. So, and interestingly enough, people comment on this almost more than anything else. So here is a software application I've written about, a lemon squeezer, I've written about my pet chickens, I've written about, you know, my favorite microphone, just almost anything you can think of. So that's kind of a fun way to let people know a little bit more about me. Then there's at the bottom, there's what I call my commercials. So you'll notice that I'm being very to the point, very clear about what I do. The idea here is not to make it so long that people won't read it. I think because it's so short, it's curious, and people are curious and they'll look at it. So I solve one big problem. I keep their businesses running smoothly. I do have a link to my services page, though, which has, I don't even know, 75 things on it on my website. So that gives them an opportunity to look further if they want to, but it doesn't overwhelm them here. And then the schedule a free 30-minute consult with me. And if some of you have your own businesses and you don't offer that service, I highly recommend it. That's probably my second highest secret weapon, which is to let people get on my calendar, both clients and people who are considering, you know, just want to have a conversation with me about their business. So often people will just pop up on my calendar. And it happened today. Someone that I spoke somewhere else, she got on my calendar and she hired me to do her website like 2 hours ago. So that was great. But it all came from there. And then down at the very bottom, there are the details. So why you're receiving it. And that's important to let people know that because that's sort of your opt-in statement. And then I say I'll never rent or sell or share your email address. And then my logo. So let me just pop up here for a second. I want to tell you something else about this. All right, so notice my header. My header is not the Rocket Girl newsletter. My header is Rocket Fuel, which is the name of my newsletter. So you don't want it to be the Rocket Girl newsletter or whatever your business is. You want it to be sort of the cousin. So if you look at this header, you see that the rocket's the same, the font is the same. And I also have a tagline, which is really important. It's important for two reasons. One, it tells people what the newsletter is about. And the second is that it reminds me what I'm supposed to write about. Because I think it's easy to sort of get out of your lane sometimes. So I know that I'm writing about practical things small business owners need to know to run their businesses better. Boom. So anytime I need a reminder. So that's really important too. And the reason I mention it now is because you'll see this is where my logo is at the bottom, not at the top. And people will get used, you know, they'll know it's you after they get it a couple of times. The other thing that I do is I tell people you may reproduce this article, including this copyright, and a link to my website. I've seen where people have done that. There was one woman who got in touch with me. She had a business called the Jill of All Trades, and she was like totally my target, you know, market for people who I like to work with. And she started using my newsletters as their newsletter for a while, and she linked it to my website, and she gave me credit, and she can do that all day long. That's a good thing. So that might be an interesting thing to include. And then of course, people can unsubscribe at any time. All right, question. How are you collecting the information of those who want to learn more? Is it a simple contact form that links to your email, or does it go straight to a scheduling service? It goes directly to a scheduling service, a calendar embedded into my website. It's called Acuity. It's the platform that Felicia uses for HAYVN. And so they click on that link, they go to a page on my website, and they choose the time. I ask a couple of questions and they're right in my calendar. And in fact, well, I'll talk about that later in a minute, but I'm going to offer you guys the same thing. Okay. All right, there's my logo. Now, when you want to do a newsletter, there are many different ways that you can do that. So you can either use Constant Contact, MailChimp is my total favorite, Infusionsoft, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, Ontraport. It just goes on and on and on. So there are many, many options for software to deliver your newsletter. So now I want to talk about this. All right. So your email universe, the reason I say it like this is because I keep my email newsletter universe separate from my CRM. I have a CRM that's, has names and addresses and notes and, contact information for my people. But my newsletter list is really its own universe. I add people as they opt in, they add themselves, they unsubscribe, they're removed if they bounce too many times and MailChimp cleans them. But it really is not something that you need to, it's not really something, it's self-serve. That's what I'm trying to say. It's self-serve. So I just was on the phone a few minutes ago with a client, and she was trying to combine MailChimp with something else. We were having a long conversation about it, but really I encourage you to keep it separate, keep it clean, and let people opt in. People, all right. Oh, hi, Holly. When people sign up, do they sign up for your blog? All right, thank you for that. Look at this. Okay, newsletter versus blog. What's the difference? Okay, so my newsletter, I'm gonna make sure I answer that, Holly. So my newsletter arrives in their email inbox. It's easy to forward, and they can click and reply. So it's like, it's right there. A blog is really good because it's permanently on your website, and people can check you out. Google rewards fresh content. It's a place to link to and all of that. And that's why I suggest that you do both. So we're going to talk about all the different places that I use my email newsletter content. But the reason I think a newsletter is in some ways more, well, not really more important, but what happens is by having it delivered, it just shows up. A blog, on the other hand, someone has to think of you, go to your website, poke around, and find it. So it's just, I think it's more self-serving for the newsletter sender just to send it out. I love putting it on the website though, because it starts to be this permanent record of all of these newsletters that I've written. And I have had people say to me, I just spent an hour on your website and I'm ready to get to work with you because of that sort of permanent record. All right, there's a couple other questions I just want to check. Okay. So they signed up, so Holly, they signed up for my email newsletter, and so they're all sort of in the same universe. All right. I'm just reading a question. Okay, so Anne is asking, years ago I had a regular email practice. I had 2,500 on the list, but they're all 10 years old. You want to dust it off and relaunch? I would do that. I would dust the list off. I would make sure that you still know them. They're still, I think that I send my newsletter to everyone I know that hasn't unsubscribed, but I do ask them if they want to get it, if they've already been getting something from you, and I would just sort of look over it to make sure that because you don't want to be accused of spam, because that can get you in trouble. All right. How did your list go from 200 to 15,000? So my Rocket Girl list went from 200 to 1,500. The 15,000, I had an online retail store for about 8 years, and I partnered with a couple of different organizations. They gave their clients opted into my email newsletter, and I provided them with a bib that was branded from my company. So, and then there was lots of other things to do back in the dark ages of the internet that are not available now. But speaking is a great way to grow your list. Also having coffee with people virtually or otherwise, and just making sure that the second to last thing you say to them is, would it be okay if I, add you to my email newsletter list before you say goodbye to them for that meeting? So, and then making sure you actually do that. The other thing is make sure that you add all your current clients, because I've been into my clients' world and we realize their clients aren't even getting their newsletter. So just sometimes some of the really obvious things you want to make sure. Okay, so let's see. The question, are there businesses that you would suggest focus on a blog versus a newsletter? And what is the frequency? So my Rocket Girl newsletter, the best cadence for me for that is every 2 weeks. Some of my clients do newsletters every week. It really just depends on your business, and I think the more generous content you give, the more frequently you can send it, because it's not an ad. And you'll notice that there was nothing in my newsletter asking for a referral, asking if they needed help. It's really genuinely me giving information to my readers, and they just spread the word because they're so happy about it. So that has a lot to do with it. My retail business, I was more careful because the numbers were pretty big and I was selling. That was my whole point, was to sell. And so that people would, unsubscribe in higher doses. Okay, so Amy's asking, okay, so Amy, this is a good question. When you put your newsletter content into your website, where do you put it if you don't have a blog? A blog is just a place on your website to put content, so repeating content. So if you have a WordPress website and you're putting your newsletters, there's a place for that, and you can call it newsletter, you can call it blog, you can call it insights, you can name it anything you want. But all WordPress websites have that, and so do Squarespace. Probably Wix does too. It's just something you need to add in. So talk to your web developer or to find that out. All right, I'm going to jump ahead here. I think there's one more question, but I want to tell you, because I want to tell you some fast ways once you produce the content that you can use it, and then I'm going to jump back to the questions. So here it is on my website right here that we just talked about. This is the footer of my website. You can see I make it very easy for people to subscribe. This is on every single page of my website. Down here are the recent newsletters, every single page. And then the other thing that is really important to my business that I was talking about are these free 30-minute consultations, which all of you are welcome to. You just go to my website down in the lower right-hand corner, you click 30 minutes. It's just a time for us to talk, and you can ask follow-up questions about this as well. Okay, and then what I do is I put it on Facebook. I put it on my Rocket Girl page. If I think that it might be interesting to my friends, I'll put it there. I'm a little bit more careful about doing it in my friends zone, but I absolutely put it on my Rocket Girl page. And how you do that is you take the URL from your website, you drop it into Facebook, it pulls the picture in, it pulls this little gray box at the bottom in, and then I just added why I love fall, and you could write anything there. Then I put it on LinkedIn, exactly the same thing. You'll notice on Facebook, I just wrote why I love fall because it's sort of a more informal platform. On LinkedIn, I pull a sentence from the newsletter itself and put it there. Then you can post it as a LinkedIn article. If you go to the home page of LinkedIn, not your LinkedIn profile, but the home page of LinkedIn, where you can create a post, you can also create an article. And here's a place where you can post the entire article, and you'll also, with the title, You can post the image and all of that, and it's another way to get it onto LinkedIn. If you do that, here's like a little secret weapon. At the bottom, even though it's going to show your name and it's going to show your picture, I also do this for myself and for all my clients. I just put a little blurb and a link to my website where they can subscribe to my newsletter if they want to. Okay, all right, so let me tell you something that just happened to me that it surprised me, and I was so delighted. So I'm publishing this newsletter, right, for years, and so I have a whole stash of them, and I decided I wanted to do video, and I thought, what am I going to do video on? So what I did was I created the Rocket Girl Show, and I have each one of my newsletters I turned into a 9-minute video, 5 to 9 minute video. So here, I just think I'm doing a newsletter, I'm putting it on LinkedIn, I'm bopping along, and then all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, there's this whole entire other opportunity. And keep your eye on me on Instagram, because I'm going to turn this into Instagram TV. Just haven't figured it out yet. But so this is another way to do it. So what I do is I open my newsletter. They're pretty short to the point, and I spend about 20 minutes getting the video ready. I have a slide with the 4 points. I have a slide like this in the beginning, and I go on to Periscope, YouTube, a couple of places on Facebook, and then I post it on LinkedIn afterward, because LinkedIn live video is in beta, and I haven't been able to get one of those accounts yet. I'm trying. So that's sort of a bonus round for that. All right, whoops. Oh, let me just show you for a second. So this is how the Rocket Girl Show starts. I don't know if you can hear it, but I have this little bumper like this. Hi, everybody, right? And so then I just go right into the video. So that's kind of a fun thing. This tool is called StreamYard, so you can have these banners, and it's just kind of fun. All right, so tools to help you with this. So Buffer, Hootsuite, Meet Edgar, those are all tools for social sharing across different platforms. There's also another one that I didn't mention. It's called Planlis. That will help you with Pinterest and Instagram. And I'm in the process of checking those out for sure. And so once you have this content, you can see there's like a lot of stuff you can do. You could create a podcast, the contributed content, which is what I was talking about, posting on other people's websites. And I've had clients say to me, can I publish your article in my newsletter and give you credit, like all day, right? I have another client, he turned his newsletter into a book. He's done it 3 times. Or reprint. Some of my clients, what they'll do is they'll take the newsletter and I'll turn it into a reprint for them. So what that means is we take the header, we put it in a Word document, we put the newsletter underneath, then their bio, and they're using it for sales tools to send to clients as follow-ups. And then the last slide here is, this is not easy. It's just not easy. If I'm not a writer, I've written almost 200 of these things now, but it's been so worth it. I can't even tell you. It's grown my business tremendously, all 3 times. And but the process is, I get an idea, I sit down, I write about it. I used to make a joke. My first newsletters took an entire day and a whole bag of potato chips, but that is the truth. And but now it doesn't take that long. I use an editor. I have people I talk to about content. So it's not like I just sit down and type it and send it. So don't think that's what it is and that you're just not good at it. It's a whole lot more than that. All right, so I'm going to leave this up, and I'd love for you to join my email list, and that's how you can. I'm going to look at the questions now. Are we good, Felicia?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. All right, so Kate. All right, I answered that. I think there's one more question. Is it okay to move your LinkedIn connections to your email newsletter list? That's so here's the trick with that. You used to be able to, well, all right, high level, you should always have your contacts be opted in. That's the official company line. Now, you used to be able to export your LinkedIn contacts, including their email addresses, and put them into your email newsletter list. However, you can't do that anymore with the GDPR thing that happened, like now, I guess it's almost a couple of years ago or so. You can't export their email addresses. I do have clients that when they make new LinkedIn connections, they message them and say, thanks for connecting with me. Is it okay if I add you to my email newsletter list? And they have very successfully grown their list that way. So I wouldn't recommend just dropping everyone in, because you will get someone at, if you get a certain amount of spam reports, MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever you use can shut you down. And some of the companies, if you try to import a large number of contacts all at once, you could get a phone call from them trying to understand where all those names came from, because they have, the reason we use a system like this, like MailChimp or Constant Contact, is they have relationships with the internet service providers, so that the email will go through and not hit the firewalls and the spam filters and all that. So they're really trying to protect their reputation and allow us to do that. Let's see. How do you get pictures, get your pictures like the fall photo? Hi, Ginger. I use a service called 123rf.com, and that picture was $2. And you just get creative about, you know, you sort of search your way around in there. I've been using this service for a long time. I do recommend purchasing your images or making really sure that it's okay for you to use them. I've had a couple of clients have to pay a fee because they used images that were copyrighted, and they don't just say, oh, just give me the $30 for the picture. They, both of them, it was high hundreds, low $1,000 numbers that happened as a result of this. So any other